Hello everyone. In this video, I will explain why the Titanic and the Olympic were not switched. First of all, the Titanic sign was not simply taken off one and switched to the Olympic. So the theory is that they took a sign, or you could say the letters more specifically, of the Titanic and put them on the Olympic, and then when the ship sinks, you'll see they'll say the letters have fallen off, and you will see the Olympic letters there, which this is not true. That was CGI. So basically, the Titanic logo was etched on it with a gold yellow tint color to it. It would have taken more than a weekend to do that. Also, you can see on the two ships in the picture, in this figure, you could see a deck promenade on both are vastly different on the two ships. So if hypothetically you switch the two names, still the ships are so different looking exterior and interior wise that it just would take more complex operations than just switching the letters or the signs off the ships. You can see Titanic has smaller square windows and the Olympic has much larger ones with space in between. You can clearly see that they were sisters, but they were not twins. First class wasn't using those decks, also B deck, on the Olympic, so they modified the Titanic promenade decks. So they modified it on the Titanic what people weren't using on the Olympic. Another thing to point out is many officers that served on both ships. So you have some officers that were on the Olympic, which came out first, and then they also were on the Titanic. So they would have been able to tell there was a huge difference, and they survived. Some of the officers survived, obviously, and they never said anything about this. They never noticed that the ships were switched out at all. And also, this brings me to another point about the hypothetical workers that would have switched the ships out. They would have came out at some point and done whistleblowing, because we see this with many conspiracy theories that are true, that eventually they'll come out and have whistleblowers. The alien UFO conspiracy theory is a perfect example of this. So that never happened, and it would have taken so much manpower to do that. Also, the radio rooms on both ships were in totally different areas in the Titanic and the Olympic. So what the radio room is where they would do the Morse code. And like say, before we have the technology we have now, which is a very great blessing in this time period. Back then, say if you want to send a message to somebody, you would have in the radio room with Morse code, they would send it to somebody on another ship or on land. They also would give the captain telegrams and stuff like that. So that was in a totally different area. So you would have had to completely reconstruct the interior of it. And also the interior in general was different. But they were very, very similar. Very similar. The next thing to point out is the construction number. The Titanic construction number was 401. The Olympic was 400. And in the wreckage, only 401 was found on the ship in the parts. So on the propeller blades and essential parts of the ship, the mechanical parts and stuff like that, there's 401. So you would have had to have taken out the propeller blades out of the water and all the essential parts of the ship. Underneath it, pieces of the metal and stuff like that. So this would have been a gigantic makeover, a gigantic surgery to dissect these different parts and switch them out, which would be really expensive and really ridiculous to do. Also, another thing to point out, any of these changes would have taken months and plenty of manpower, just to make that clear. Like the time frame it would have taken. The insurance fraud theory. The insurance fraud conspiracy theory would have been foolish because the Titanic was underinsured. It was worth $7.5 million in 1912, but was only insured for $5 million. The Olympic was insured for more. So such an action would be redundant. And because that is the conspiracy that it was because of insurance reasons they wanted to have the other ship sunk, so they switched them out, and then they had some group come in to save everybody and the lifeboats. And another thing to point out is to have somebody orchestrate a ship sinking when it's completely pitch black outside, and you go ram into the ship in the right spot, in the right area, would take a lot of skill to manually do that, but it was unfortunately done by mistake. The Olympic was in World War I. It never sunk, and it was scrapped because of the Depression and also the merger with the Cunard Lines and White Star Line. And back in that time period, people saw the Olympic as a magnificent ship. How we romanticized Titanic, they romanticized the Olympic because it was able to survive, and modifications were made on the Olympic after Titanic sunk. So they extended the rooms, the watertight bulkheads, so they wouldn't overrun each other like dominoes. And very cool, as you could see, I showed, and showing the camouflage that it had. Very modern design. And there are many conspiracy theories about Titanic that are very, very plausible. Way, way more than this one that I'll cover in another video. Comment your thoughts below. What you think of the Titanic in this situation. And also, I think it's very cool how we can dissect this and see the Titanic through these videos and photographs that have been taken. And also, this was requested, and I wanted to do it. And I like doing these kind of videos about Titanic. I have built a model of Titanic before. So, good day to everybody. Happy Easter.